Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I thought I would do a new video, one you guys kind of find entertaining. Today we're going to talk about Socrates and the fall of democracy. I'm a big fan of Socrates. I take a lot of his works, take a lot of his philosophy straight to heart, and I think that most people should. Shouldn't be too much reasons to deny Socrates, even if you have a different point of view. He strived to say knowledge is the greatest virtue, and I don't think that's wrong. I mean, why not strive to get wiser, more intelligent? Why not go about doing these things and in a sense, increase your intelligence? If you ask me, it's kind of common sense. But that's not what today's video is about, though I could go on forever about Socrates. Today's we're gonna talk about a specific point and criticism Socrates had of democracy. Now, while I'm making this video, I'm going to be drawing a lot of allusions to what's going on in America. Perhaps we can even say the whole West. But first and foremost, let's jump right into this. So, I'm currently reading an article right now. I have it pulled up. I might go ahead and link it as well if you guys want to get your own read into it. But Socrates was a big critic of democracy. Not in the sense that, he was against democratic thinking, freedom of thought or things like that. Oh, no. Socrates was perhaps one of the biggest, guys that said freedom of thought should exist. He didn't advocate against democracy. More or less what he advocated for what democracy can become, which is demagoguery. So, what's demagoguery? Well, we're about to pull up the definition. That way I don't get taken out of context. And thank you, Google, for having a library at our hands. So that's one good thing about Google, regardless of your guys' thoughts about it. So, demagoguery. A demagogue, or rabble-rouser, is a leader in a democracy who gains popularity by exploiting prejudice and ignorance among the common people, whipping up the passions of the crowd and shutting down reasonable deliberation. So that's a demagogue. Demagogues usually are populist kind of leaders, They appeal more to emotion, which, if anybody who's a debater should know, fallacies are just an appeal upon emotion. They're charismatic manipulation. But why I draw the allusion to democracy becoming demagoguery in the West? Well, I would say PC culture. Now, I'm a big advocate against PC culture. I think you should be able to speak your mind regardless of how ignorant it is, I believe, as much as Nazis should be able to speak, so should communists. Do I agree we should take them seriously? No. Fuck no. But that's just how democracy works, if the progressives want to speak their pseudo, almost borderline communist rhetoric, then so should the alt-right, even if I disagree with both sides. But I wanted to go ahead and say why PC culture is completely demagoguery. Well, one illusion that Socrates made when he was criticizing democracy is, and when he was alliterating what demagoguery was he talked about the doctor and the candy man. Now, for anybody familiar with this, you would already know what I'm talking about, but I guess I can paraphrase it as best as possible. So, you have a debate going on of who would be able to heal the people. Well, the doctor has bitter-tasting medicine, but the candy man has sweet-tasting candy that makes people momentarily feel good. It's like catharsis, pretty much. The doctor goes about describing how his medicine would cure the ailments, but the candy man simply refutes with, well, mine makes you feel good in the moment. It doesn't taste as bad, it's something to put in your belly, things along those lines. And due to the fact that, people tend to want to, go towards a more hedonistic route, they would pick the candy man. Why? Because, I'll ask yourself this, if McDonald's said that they were the best healer in all the lands, and then you had some body who has a medical degree, some nobody, and he offers you bitter tasting medicine. Of course, not everybody is going to simply just jump on there, but most humans will typically go for the more desirable option, which would be, well, McDonald's. All the McDonald's company has to do is just debate and appeal directly to what the people want. You know, he says that what Socrates says would be the fall of democracy is when it becomes a popularity contest. If you don't think that the West is becoming a popularity contest, let me go pull up my home country of America itself. The 2016 elections, you had Trump and you have Clinton, both of which are bad for their own reasons, not inherently the same. You have Clinton, who is completely a demagogue, if you have to really think about it, cynical as shit, you know, a giant shill, has a lot of conspiracies behind her, whether you believe it or not. Hell, I would go ahead and say that most of them are true. I mean, one's been pointed true. She fucked over Bernie Sanders in the election, and regardless of how it went, she was going to fuck him over. Look at it like this, you know. Bernie Sanders had the popular vote. Love Bernie's politics or hate him. Hell, I think he even attracted me a little bit. Maybe not with full-on socialist rhetoric, but just the sheer fact that I think that if the man was being hunted that bad, you know, had to be some fucking reason. But I also think that Bernie, to his core, is a good guy, although sometimes his politics is misleading, and I believe he probably would reach across the aisle. But that's just me, though. Give me your thoughts about that in the comment section below. But, you know, there's also, on the other hand, you have on the right, Trump. And Trump was so good at appealing to the masses. Hell, how can you be a businessman if you're not charismatic in some regard? You may not have to inherently be, you know, charming, like Prince Charming appeal and butter up people, which is what politics is about, but CEOs could walk in and commandeer a room just by sheer body language alone. You know, it's there's a lot of things into it. They're really good at psychology, really good at spinning you a deal. Ever talk to a car salesman? Shit. A lot of times they're right on the dot unless you're disagreeable as fuck. But that's a big example of how demagoguery is taking place in America. You have two other options, and love it or hate it. But, you know, you had Jill Stein and Gary Johnson, and most people have decided that the two best political parties for the United States is, well, the Republican and Democrat, even though there are other options. It's almost as if people don't sit down and think, which is what Socrates said to do when you go out to cast your vote. Sit down and think on it. And this wasn't even a democratic republic like ours, not even a republic. It was just a pure direct democracy, which could be very dangerous if you have an ignorant populace, which is what Socrates was pretty much killed for. He pretty much told everyone to go out there and think. He didn't tell them how to think, he just said go out there and think on it. He wasn't trying to sway people over to his own personal biases, which everyone has, no matter how hard you try not to be. But he went out there and said, you know, think of who's best, not who appeals to your senses, you know, not what appeals to you, but what's best for society as a whole. And that's where we've came nowadays, you know, where we've gotten. We've just gotten to this point that, you know, we pick whoever works in our favor and not what works for society's favor. But that's one of my many thoughts about this subject. As we can go on to Britain, you know, and going back to PC culture, we can see that, you know, and one of my first YouTube video, official one, you had Count Dankula, who pretty much was arrested for being offensive. You know, if you think about it, is being offensive popular? No. Hell, Socrates was offensive to the people who were running Athens at the time, to the demagogues themselves, and was killed for it. Being offensive is almost impossible as long as you state your mind, and stating your mind is what makes a free democratic society. So that's why I said with democracy, with Socrates, he wanted people to kind of think. He didn't want to do away with democracy. It was a new experiment. It worked pretty fucking well, if you ask me. Even in Athens, though it kind of did fall a little bit, you know. And it's kind of hard to follow when you're listening to what people have to say, a bunch of people. But, you know, it still can work. It goes back to what Jordan Peterson stated in taking responsibility when discussing rights. The difference between a privilege and a right is universal and it goes upon everybody. A privilege is wanting something that you personally want. And in fact, I could do another video, probably going to do another video here soon where we talk about Freud and egotism, and also go a little bit into Gustav and what he thinks. But that's going to be a discussion for another day. But guys, when you go out there and vote for a leader, don't pick the one that appeals most to you. Pick one that will appeal to everybody. Think about it real quick. And yeah, I'm not saying forfeit your biases here, you know, and fucking, you know, give away what you as an individual want, your own interests. But, you know, be able to make a resolution. You know, if you're never going to find somebody that fully agrees with you on everything. I voted for Gary Johnson, and I still think Gary was not a full libertarian about things. And I sure as hell wasn't going to vote for Trump or Clinton, even though I don't think Trump is as bad as people make him out to be. But, yeah. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a take on this. I'm going to be linking some articles down in the description about Socrates, and I might read an excerpt if I got a little bit of time left. Hard to record when you're recording on a Samsung phone. But yeah, let's see real quick. It's such a crazy thing what's going on in the West. I honestly think that it's not just, you know, this isn't just happening, but I think the paradigm of how it's manifesting is changing. I believe that if we don't read history, we're doomed to repeat it. Yeah, it's pretty interesting with this article. Probably won't be able to get. Let's see. What's a good highlight I can make here? Yeah, Plato is talking about democracy is rather thought-provoking. It gives us pause and forces us to examine our own government. Could it be true that our leaders are the bullies and the political tyrants that Plato describes? Does democracy lead to entangling wars for the benefits of the ruling class? And are the people so subjugated by senseless laws and stiff taxes that are unable to resist any meaningful way? Perhaps history has shown a consistent pattern of subjugation, revolution, and subjugation once again. I believe what this might be a little bit of the author's take, you know, but I believe that, you know, democracy is going to always have its rises and falls. That's what politics is about. There's no political party that's absolutely correct. There's just you know, what it does in the meantime. That's why I became more moderate. Even though I remain libertarian in principle for the most part, you know, kind of left-leaning, I hold some progressive values and things along those lines. I hold a lot of libertarian values, but if I ever needed to, I would meet in the middle if possible. I would never fully subjugate past the middle. I would never fully give up everything. But if there was a crisis happening and I had to step in and say, you know what, I will probably do this, or give my thoughts, or, you know, give a plan that achieves for both parties, I would. And I do believe that the author has somewhat of a point here when I read that one little excerpt about Plato, who really gave us a lot of insight about Socrates. But he did say that, you know, we are subjugated by senseless laws and stiff taxes. Sometimes we are. I believe that comes in what Hogg says about the Leviathan and having government in general. On the other hand, I'm a monarchist, you know. I used to be an anarchist, but I found out that government is inherently going to always exist. Some form of government, at least. You know, there will always be someone who has more power than everyone else. You know, everyone can be as close to equal, but there will always be a little bit of a deficit. Equity never works if we all were exactly the same. That's why communism has failed time and time again. But I do agree. Part of the problem with democracy is there always will be revolution in some form, whether it's peaceful protest, whether it's actual violent, bloody battles, whether it's just shifting the hands of who has in charge through the democratic process. Democracy is not the answer to authoritarianism, which authoritarianism is something that we've all agreed for the most part is archaic and old. It harms the people more than it does good. The only way an autocracy would ever work, or an authoritarian government of any kind, is if there was a utopia to somehow do that. And I mean, only through technology and transhumanism is that even possible, but we're still years off from that. And then again, hell, I would be an autocrat, but I wouldn't expect the people to follow me or even trust me, just like I wouldn't trust if someone else became an autocrat. If I had to be a little egomaniacal there, but that's the thing about it. That's why I say democracy is the best system. That way nobody can bitch and complain. We all get a little bit of our own piece of the pie. It's only when we allow our own egos to come in do we allow democracy to start to fall, when our own self-interest, when we allow it to become a popularity contest and not somewhat meritocratic. Meritocracy is not fully bad in and of itself, but a little bit of meritocracy and democracy make a really great system, if you ask me. Because Plato believed only the smartest should rule, and I agree. If you're going to run a bunch of people, if you're going to be making policies, a smart populace is one, first and foremost. But if we're going to have a republic, we need intelligent people running it, not cynics, not whoever is the most popular, not whoever is the most wealthiest. It's whoever is the wisest and most fair. But that would be it for this video, guys. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment in the section, give me your thoughts, and until next time, deuces.